Right now, somewhere in your house, there's a dark room you haven't walked into yet tonight. And if you had to, you'd probably turn on the light first. Not because you actually think something's in there. You know better. You're an adult, you've read the news, you understand predators don't live in your hallway. And yet, some part of you still hesitates for half a second before you flip that switch. That hesitation is the entire subject of this video. Because that flicker of unease isn't a leftover childhood habit. It isn't something you should have grown out of by now. It's a piece of software running in your brain that is over 1 million years old, and it was never designed to be turned off. To understand why, we have to go back to a time when humans weren't the scary thing in the dark. We were the thing being hunted. Let's start with the obvious question. Why would evolution bother building a fear response for something as harmless as an empty room? The answer starts with a cave in South Africa called Wonderwork. In 2026, researchers published findings pushing the earliest evidence of controlled fire use back to somewhere between 1.07 and 1.79 million years ago, deep inside that cave. Burnt bone fragments, ash residue, scorched stone tools, all of it sitting 30 meters from the entrance, too far in for the fire to have started naturally. Someone carried a flame in there on purpose, and here's the detail that matters. That fire wasn't for cooking. Not yet. The researchers argue its first job was warmth, light, and keeping something else out, which raises the real question. What exactly were early humans so afraid would come in? The answer is almost embarrassingly simple. Us. We were prey. For most of our evolutionary history, humans were mid-sized, slow, clawless, and almost blind after sunset. Lions, leopards, and hyenas, the same species still hunting today, are built for exactly the hours we're worst at surviving. Big cats have a reflective layer behind their retinas called a tapetum lucidum that lets them see clearly in near total darkness. We don't have one. Our eyes are built for daylight, color, and detail, and almost useless once the sun drops. So picture the math our ancestors were running every single night. You're a fast-moving predator with night vision versus a human who can barely see their own hand. That's not a fair fight. That's not even a fight. That's a feeding. And the data backs this up more literally than you'd expect. A study published in PLOS1 looked at recorded lion attacks on humans in Tanzania and found something striking. Attacks were roughly 60% more likely to happen after 6 p.m. than during daylight hours. Even more unsettling, the same researchers found attacks spiked in the days following a full moon, once the moonlight had faded and the nights got darkest again. Predators didn't just prefer the dark, they timed it, which means for hundreds of thousands of years, nightfall wasn't a mood, it was a countdown. Now, here's where evolution does something ruthless. Imagine two early humans. One feels nothing when the light fades, calm, relaxed, wandering off from the group without a second thought. The other feels a tightening in the chest the moment the shadows get long, an urge to get back near the fire, to stop moving, to listen. Which one is more likely to survive long enough to have kids? Obviously the anxious one, and their kids inherit that same nervous system. Generation after generation, for hundreds of thousands of years, the calm ones got edited out and the anxious ones kept reproducing. Psychologist Martin Seligman had a name for this kind of evolved, a fast-tracked fear. He called it prepared learning. Some fears, like spiders and snakes and darkness, don't need to be taught. They're preloaded. Your brain doesn't wait for a bad experience before it decides the dark is dangerous. It already assumes that before you've ever been hurt by anything. This is why the fear response to darkness is almost entirely involuntary. Neuroscientists point to the amygdala, the almond-shaped structure deep in your brain that handles threat detection, and here's the part that should make you slightly uncomfortable. Your amygdala reacts to darkness before your conscious mind even has time to evaluate whether there's an actual threat. Your pupils dilate, your breathing shifts, your heart rate ticks up. All of that happens automatically, milliseconds before the rational, thinking part of your brain gets a chance to say, relax, it's just a hallway. By the time you've talked yourself out of being afraid, your body already voted, and it voted for fear. There's a second mechanism working alongside this one, and it's arguably even stranger. It's called Pareidolia, and it's the reason a coat on a chair can look like a person standing in the corner of your room at 2 a.m. When your brain loses visual certainty, it doesn't just go quiet. It starts guessing. It fills in missing information with the most cautious possible interpretation, because in the ancestral environment, guessing wrong in the safe direction, mistaking a bush for a predator cost you nothing. But guessing wrong in the other direction, mistaking a predator for a bush cost you your life. This is sometimes called error management theory, when the cost of one mistake is so much higher than the other. Evolution doesn't build a brain that's accurate. It builds a brain that's paranoid on purpose. Your ancestors who saw threats that weren't there survived to have more ancestors than the ones who missed threats that were. So why hasn't this faded? We've had electricity for less than 150 years. We've had streetlights, locks, alarm systems, and phones with flashlights built in. By almost every measure, modern humans are safer at night than at any point in our species' history. And yet the fear hasn't updated because evolution doesn't work on that timescale. The nervous system you have tonight is functionally the same one a human had in that cave 1,000,000 years ago, back when carrying fire inside was a matter of life or death. Software that took 1,000,000 years to build doesn't get patched in a single century of streetlights. There's one more layer to this that rarely gets mentioned. Humans didn't just fear the dark. We organized our entire social lives around defeating it. That fire at Wonderwork Cave didn't just keep predators out, it pulled people in. Sitting shoulder to shoulder around a single point of light and warmth is arguably one of the oldest shared human experiences there is. Older than language as we know it. Older than agriculture. Older than almost everything we'd call civilization. Some anthropologists argue the campfire itself may be where storytelling, bonding, and even early religious thought first took root, because it was the one place fear couldn't reach you. The dark pushed us together long before anything else did. So tonight, when you walk down a dark hallway and your hand finds the light switch just a little faster than it needs to, that's not irrational. That's not a phobia you failed to outgrow. That's a warning system built by 100,000 generations of ancestors who did not survive by assuming they were safe. Every one of them is the reason you exist, and every one of them is still, in some small electrical way, awake inside you every time the lights go out. You're not afraid of the dark. You're remembering it.